3 men claiming to be HOA enforcement officers grabbed my 8-year-old daughter while she was playing on her swing set. Everything changed in an instant. "Daddy, help!" Emma screamed, her voice filled with terror as a man in a fake uniform gripped her arm. "They say I'm breaking the rules." Something primal awakened inside me. In Afghanistan, I was known as the Hunter, a special forces tracker who could find anyone, anywhere. Now, these fake HOA thugs had just found out what happens when you threaten a hunter's cub. In seconds, I was across the yard. The largest man turned to face me, flashing a cheap badge. "Sir, we're with Willow Creek HOA enforcement. Your daughter is violating Regulation 15B by using unauthorized play equipment. We'll need to take her to the community office until you pay the $500 fine." My voice came out dangerously quiet. "Take your hands off my daughter. Now." The man didn't move. Behind him, a woman with a pinched face and pearls watched from a black SUV. Karen Hartford, the neighborhood busybody who'd been harassing families with fake HOA violations since we moved in. "The regulations clearly state," the man started. I cut him off. "There is no HOA in this neighborhood. Your badges are fake. Your uniforms are fake. And if you don't release my daughter in 3 seconds, what happens next will be very real." Emma's eyes were wide with fear, tears streaming down her face as she struggled against the man's grip. That sight, my little girl terrified and restrained, triggered something I hadn't felt since combat. What happened next was pure muscle memory. A precise strike to the man's wrist broke his hold on Emma. A sweeping motion placed my body between her and the threats. 3 calculated moves later, their leader was on his knees, arm locked behind his back. "Emma, go inside and lock the door," I said calmly. She ran, looking back just once before disappearing into the house. The 2 other men backed away, hands raised. From the SUV, Karen was frantically making a phone call, her face twisted with rage. "You have no idea who you're dealing with," the man on his knees spat. I applied just enough pressure to make him wince. "No, you have no idea who you're dealing with. I spent 8 years hunting high-value targets through war zones. You think I'm afraid of neighborhood scammers?" I released him with a shove and stood my ground. "You have 30 seconds to get off my property. If I ever see you near my daughter again, what happened today will seem like a friendly greeting." As they retreated to the SUV, Karen rolled down her window. "This isn't over, Sullivan. No one defies the HOA. No one." 3 days later, I learned just how serious her threat was. Emma came running home from the school bus stop, face pale with terror. "Dad, those HOA men were at school. They told my teacher they needed to talk to me about violations at home. She didn't let them, but they said they'd be back tomorrow." My blood turned to ice. These people weren't just running a scam, they were stalking a child. My child. This had crossed from harassment into something far more dangerous. I called the real police immediately, but Officer Rodriguez gave me disappointing news. "We've had complaints about these fake HOA scammers before, but they're careful. They word things as recommendations and community guidelines. Most people just pay to avoid trouble. We need evidence of explicit threats or fraud to act." "They tried to take my daughter," I said, my voice tight with controlled rage. "That's different," Rodriguez said, suddenly alert. "That's attempted kidnapping. We can work with that." That night, after putting Emma to bed with promises that she was safe, I sat in my home office and did what I was trained to do. I planned a mission. In the Marines, I learned that to eliminate a threat, you need to understand it completely. Karen's fake HOA operation wasn't just random harassment, it was a calculated criminal enterprise preying on vulnerable residents. I started gathering intelligence. Our neighbor Carol had been documenting Karen's activities for months. The Patel family had paid over $3,000 in fake fines before realizing it was a scam. Elderly Mrs. Thompson had been reduced to tears when they threatened to condemn her home over holiday decorations. The pattern was clear. Karen and her crew targeted newcomers who wouldn't know there was no legitimate HOA, single parents they assumed would be too overwhelmed to fight back, and elderly residents who could be easily intimidated. Their operation was sophisticated, professional-looking violation notices, fake uniforms, counterfeit badges, and even a rented office space they called the HOA Community Center, where they collected fines and cash. Most disturbing of all, they had begun focusing on children, approaching them at school, frightening them with threats about their parents getting in trouble, using kids as pressure points. They had picked the wrong kid this time. I called an emergency neighborhood meeting at my house, making sure Karen wasn't aware. 20 families showed up, each with their own horror story. They fined me $750 for having a basketball hoop, said Mark Johnston, a teacher with 3 boys. They told my grandmother her garden gnomes were against regulations and took them, said Sophia Chin, her voice breaking. Those gnomes were from my grandfather. They were irreplaceable. They photographed my children playing and said it was for violation documentation, Maria Gonzalez added, shuddering. It felt predatory. As the stories poured out, something transformed in that room. The fear and isolation Karen had carefully cultivated began to crack. People who had been suffering alone realized they were part of a community, one that could fight back together. We created a plan. Everyone would install security cameras. We established a phone tree to alert each other when Karen's crew was active. I taught simple techniques for documenting encounters legally and safely. But most importantly, I reached out to my old unit commander, now running a security firm. These people are targeting children, Mike, I explained. My daughter, specifically. Say no more, he replied. The team's on standby. Just give us the word. 2 days later, Karen made her final mistake. I was in the front yard with Emma, deliberately visible, planting flowers in our garden. Right on schedule, the black SUV pulled up, and all 5 officers emerged along with Karen herself. This time they brought a video camera, planning to create an intimidating spectacle for the whole neighborhood to see. Mr. Sullivan, Karen announced loudly, playing to her audience, we have documented 23 violations on your property. If you don't pay the accumulated fines of $12,500 immediately, we'll be forced to place a lien on your home and begin eviction proceedings. Several neighbors had emerged from their homes, all part of our plan. Additionally, she continued with a cold smile, we'll be requiring your daughter to attend HOA community service for her playground violations. Emma pressed against my leg, trembling but standing tall just as we'd practiced. That's interesting, I said calmly. Especially since there is no HOA in Willow Creek Estates. Karen's smile faltered slightly. Of course there is. I'm the president. Actually, I pulled out my phone, I have the county records right here. No HOA has ever been registered in this neighborhood. What you're running is a criminal fraud operation. Her face hardened. We don't need government registration to enforce community standards. We have authority from the homeowners themselves. Really? I raised my voice slightly. Does anyone here remember authorizing Karen to create an HOA? On cue, neighbors stepped forward from their yards, forming a half circle behind us. I never signed anything, called Mrs. Thompson. Me neither, said Mr. Patel. One by one, 20 households denied giving Karen any authority. Her face flushed with anger. This is ridiculous. We've been operating for 3 years. No one questioned our authority before. Because you intimidated everyone into silence, I said. That ends today. Karen gestured sharply, and her men moved forward menacingly. If you think your little neighborhood rebellion scares us, you're mistaken. We have connections in the police department, the county office. She stopped abruptly as 3 police cruisers turned onto our street, lights flashing. Officer Rodriguez stepped out of the lead car. Karen Hartford? We have some questions about reports of criminal impersonation, fraud, and harassment. Karen's confidence visibly crumbled. This is a neighborhood dispute. The police have no jurisdiction in HOA matters. There is no HOA, Rodriguez replied calmly. And making false claims of authority, collecting fraudulent fines, and attempting to intimidate a child are very much police matters. As if on cue, 2 unmarked vans pulled up. From one emerged my old commander and 4 team members, all imposing figures who positioned themselves strategically around the scene. From the other stepped Sarah Chin, a district attorney I'd contacted about the case. Ms. Hartford, Chin said, all business, we have statements from 32 residents documenting your fraudulent HOA scheme. We have financial records showing over $200,000 collected in fake fines. And we have video evidence of your people attempting to remove a minor from school property under false pretenses yesterday. Karen's face went from red to ashen in seconds. Her officers were already backing toward their vehicle. This is absurd. I have rights. I have the right to remain silent, Rodriguez finished, producing handcuffs. Karen Hartford, you're under arrest for operating a criminal enterprise, fraud, harassment, and attempted child endangerment. As the officers led Karen and her crew away, the neighborhood erupted in applause. People who had lived in fear for years were crying, hugging each other, experiencing their first taste of freedom. Emma tugged at my hand. Dad? Is it over? Are the fake HOA people gone for good? I knelt down to her level. Yes, sweetheart. They can't bother us or anyone else anymore. Did you use your special military skills to catch them? She whispered, eyes wide with wonder. I smiled and looked around at our neighbors, all the people who had found their courage and stood together. I used something more powerful than any military training. What's that? Community, I said, squeezing her hand. All of us working together is stronger than any bully. In the aftermath, the full extent of Karen's operation shocked everyone. The investigation revealed a criminal network that had extorted over $350,000 from residents in 5 neighborhoods using the fake HOA scam. They had targeted primarily vulnerable residents, the elderly, single parents, immigrants who might fear authority. Karen had been running the operation for 4 years, gradually expanding and becoming bolder. What she hadn't counted on was targeting a military-trained father with a protective instinct honed in the world's most dangerous places, and a daughter brave enough to speak up. Karen and her crew faced multiple felony charges. Without her imaginary connections, which turned out to be completely fabricated, she accepted a plea deal, 12 years in state prison plus restitution to all her victims. During her sentencing, the judge made a statement that resonated with everyone. You weaponized people's desire to belong to a community, perverting it into a tool of isolation and fear. There are few crimes more damaging to our social fabric. Our neighborhood transformed in the months that followed. We established a legitimate community association, not to enforce petty rules but to bring people together. Carol was elected president, and her first act was to create a neighborhood recovery fund to help those who had lost money to the scam. Emma's swing set became the centerpiece of a new community playground built on the vacant lot where Karen had planned to construct her HOA enforcement center. The sound of children playing replaced the fearful silence that had gripped our streets for so long. 6 months later, I received a call from the FBI's Financial Crimes Division. They were investigating similar fake HOA schemes across the country and wanted me to consult. Apparently, this type of fraud was becoming more common, with predators using fake authority to intimidate homeowners. You should do it, Dad, Emma said when I told her about the offer. So other kids don't get scared like I was. I took the job working part-time while still being there for Emma. My military tracking skills found a new purpose, tracking paper trails and identifying patterns of fraud. On the 1-year anniversary of Karen's arrest, our neighborhood held a celebration. Not to remember her but to honor how far we'd come. Tables lined the street, covered with potluck dishes. Children played freely, running between yards without fear. During the festivities, Carol called for attention and asked Emma and me to come forward. A year ago, most of us were living in isolation, afraid of fake fines and harassment, she said. Then Jake and Emma Sullivan showed us something important, that standing together is stronger than falling apart. She unveiled a small plaque for our new community garden, dedicated to the father and daughter who taught us that real community isn't built on fear but on courage. Emma, now 9 and growing more confident by the day, actually gave a short speech. When those fake HOA people grabbed me, I was really scared, she said, her voice clear and strong. But my dad taught me something important. He said that bullies only have power if we believe they do. She looked around at all the faces watching her. But we're not alone anymore, are we? We're a real neighborhood now. And real is better than fake any day. Later that evening, as Emma and I sat on our porch swing watching fireflies, she asked a question that caught me off guard. Dad, do you think those fake HOA people knew they were being bad? Or did they think they were doing something good? I considered this thoughtfully. That's a deep question, sweetheart. I think most people don't start out wanting to hurt others. Karen probably told herself she was just creating order or improving the neighborhood at first. But each wrong choice made the next one easier, until frightening children seemed acceptable to her. Emma nodded seriously. I'm glad you taught me about making good choices even when they're hard. I hugged her close, overwhelmed with pride for this wise little person. You've taught me a few things too, you know? Like what? Like how even when you're scared you can still be brave. And how sometimes the most important battles aren't fought in faraway countries, but right in your own front yard. She smiled up at me. We make a pretty good team, huh? The best, I agreed. When we moved to this neighborhood after losing Emma's mother, I'd worried that I wouldn't be enough for her, that I couldn't protect her from all the world's dangers. I chose this place hoping for safety and stability. Instead, we'd found threat and chaos, but also strength we didn't know we had, and a community we helped build from the ground up. Karen Hartford had seen our little family and assumed we were vulnerable, a single dad and his daughter, easy targets for her scheme. She couldn't have been more wrong. She saw our apparent weakness but missed our strength completely. That's the thing about predators. They're so focused on looking for vulnerability, they often miss the warning signs that they're stalking something far more dangerous than they are. If you're watching this and facing your own neighborhood bully or fake authority figure, remember, real power doesn't come from intimidation or fake badges. It comes from standing together. And if you're thinking about running a scam like Karen's, fair warning, you never know when the quiet single dad down the street might be a trained military hunter who will dismantle your entire operation if you threaten his kid. This is Jake Sullivan signing off from Willow Creek Estates, where we don't have an HOA, but we have something much more powerful, a real community.